Welcome. So good to see everybody as usual. And today we're going to talk about some saving strategies as part of Trio's financial literacy. This is going to be really interactive. I'm going to put some worksheets in the chat, and you can grab those and follow along. If you aren't able to do that, then if you want to make sure that you have a piece of paper handy and you can follow along and go through the steps with me on setting some savings goals. But let's just start out by just a show of hands or reaction button, however you want to do it. If anybody in the seminar today has a savings account. Does anybody have a savings account, or have you ever had a savings account before? Michaela has a savings account, or maybe has had a savings account. Anyway, so why is it important to save? And if you just want to unmute yourselves and go ahead and say what you're thinking or what your thoughts are on that, I'll just write them down over here as we discuss it.
A rainy day fund.
So what do you mean by that? Can you say more about that?
Like for instance, if you own a car and there's an accident and you have to pay for it, but you don't have the immediate funds, you have your savings account which you can pull from. Or in case you don't have money for rent from your paycheck, like something happened and you weren't able to go to work, you have the extra funds in your savings account you can use.
Awesome.
So like just extra money on the side.
Cool. So I like the rainy day funds idea too, because if you have some money set aside in a, not necessarily an account for emergencies, like if your car breaks down or something like that, but if you have a rainy day fund, then if you spur of the moment want to go do something fun, and you have funds available for that too. Any other ideas of why it's important to have a savings account? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say I asked my mom and grandma about savings accounts, and they basically told me it's where you put money in so it can grow, or so to say.
Right.
Like, yeah, investing.
Yeah.
And it's
yeah, that's a good one, because it's important to take steps so you can double your money in some cases, or get that interest rate from a savings account that you can make money off of yourself, basically, right? So those are some really, really good answers. I also want to address, maybe since there was only one person that said that they had a savings account, why it's hard to save money. What's difficult? What are the difficulties that, or why is it that a lot of us don't have savings accounts? Any ideas about that anybody wants to share? So I know that I've never had a savings account in my entire life because I live paycheck to paycheck. So there's always something, bills come up.
Just you can't afford it.
Right. So you don't make enough money. Expenses. So there's a lot of reasons why that a lot of us don't have savings accounts or have never had savings accounts. And so I think it's really important to identify why it's important to have a savings account, and why is it that we aren't saving before we get into goal setting.
I was going to say too, on the reasons to have a savings account up at the top. Sometimes if you're looking to take out a mortgage or some kind of even an auto loan, sometimes they look to see if you have a savings account, because it shows that you have some understanding of money, financial prowess or something like that.
Right. That's so true. Like if you're applying for a loan for a bank, I guess they look at, I'm sure there's a financial term for that, like liquidated assets, liquid assets, or something like that that they consider. And if you have a savings account that you can fall back on to make payments in case you have some sort of crisis that it doesn't allow you to make the payments, that you have that to fall back on. Or I guess they look at that also as being a conscientious about your finances.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to go through this activity, like I said, and I'm just going to go ahead and drop this file in the chat, but it's loading up. And so you should be able just to pull that up, and I'm just going to pull it up on my screen and you can just follow along. And so the purpose of the activity is just to kind of take you through the steps on how you can set goals to save. So we all know that saving money is really good for us, but we also know, as we just discussed, that it can be really, really challenging. And so one of the most effective ways to help you save is to set some goals for yourself and identify how you can keep yourself accountable to a savings plan. And so in this activity, we're going to identify what your savings goals are, calculate how much you need to save, and write a letter to your future self to help you reach your goals. So we're not going to go through all of that. Most of these activities you can take this worksheet and do on your own when you have more time to actually think about what your goals are and how that is going to play out. But I'm just going to kind of take you through the activity so you have a baseline, and so you're learning how that's done. But like I said, most of this stuff you can do on your own. So for right now, I'm going to have you take a couple of minutes and just brainstorm some ideas on a piece of paper on what are some things that you want to save for. So you're just going to identify some things. Maybe it's a new computer for school, or you want to save for grad school, or you want to buy a car, or you have some expenses coming up that you want to try and save for. And so just go ahead and jot those down, and then I'll just give you a couple of minutes to do that and think about that. I know the sheet says that you are trying to aim for 15 or 20 ideas. That part you can do later if you just have at least 3 or 4 that you can write down right now. And so after you come up with those 3 or 4 things, you want to sort them into 3 different piles and 3 different goals, depending on how long you want to spend on saving those for those goals. So for instance, one of my goals was to buy a new mattress. And so I know that I want to do that in less than a couple of months, maybe 3 months. So I'm going to put that in the short-term goals. And a medium-term goal is that I want to go on vacation with my family. And so that will probably happen more than in 2 months. So probably in 6 or 7 months. And then a long-term goal that I identified was that I want to buy a Mac. I want to have a new computer within the next 3 years. So after that you have identified and put those 3 goals into the separate buckets, then you can go down here and start answering these questions. So which goal in each category would motivate you the most to save money? So as you look at your 3 buckets, which one of those things do you feel like that would motivate you the most to save, and why? Does anybody want to share something that they've written down? So if nobody wants to share, mine was the mattress. And so I feel like that would motivate me the most because I would get better sleep. And so then I would also have better health, overall health. And so on the medium one was my family vacation. And so I feel like that I would be motivated most by that. because I get to spend time with my family, and that's really important to me. And then maybe hopefully I can create a annual vacation based off this first initial vacation. And then for my Mac, that would motivate me because I absolutely must have a personal computer. And I need a Mac because of some of the creative things that I like to do. And so those are looking at those things, that those goals that I am setting, and really identifying what is going to motivate me to save in for each one of those things kind of gets me excited, a little bit excited about starting to save. So let's say that you have a part-time job and that you're able to save $100 per month from your paycheck. How would you distribute the money between your 3 savings goals above? And so my reasoning is that I want to get this mattress very quickly. So I'm going to devote $50 of the extra $100 to the mattress. And then I want to make it really simple. So I'm going to do 25 for the vacation. And then I'm also going to do 25 for the Mac. And so then you can go ahead and detail what your reasoning is. So basically, you're just working through your thought process in how you're going to save, to set yourself on a strategy to get these things that you need, right? So now you need to calculate how much you're going to save. So now that you've identified what your savings goals are, think about how much you need to save on a regular basis so that you can reach these goals. So here's an example. Sanjana wants to buy a computer that she wants to use for school, which is 9 months away. So she discovers that she finds a computer that's $400, and this is how she breaks that down. So she takes the $400 and divides it by the amount of time, which tells her she needs to save $44 a month, which breaks down to $11 a week, and it breaks down to $1.59 a day. So now you can pick either your medium or your long-term savings goal and write that down. So I'm going to pick the vacation, and then conduct research online to figure out a rough estimate. So these are things that you can do on your own, but once you you would want to look in this particular situation, you want to research flights, lodging, how much it's going to take for perhaps a rental car, and then how much you might need for extra money. So I'm just going to ballpark it and say it's going to be $1,200. So how many months or years away would you like to achieve your goal? So I want to go on this vacation in October. So that's about 8 months from now. And so then you do the same calculation that Sanjana did. So $1,200 divided by 8 months. And that turns out to be $150 a month. And then I'm going to divide that by 4 weeks in a month, and then that's $37.50 a week. And that comes out to $5 a day, approximately. I'm just kind of rounding up here. So, and then it's going to ask you to brainstorm at least 3 to 5 strategies you can use towards to save towards your goal. So can anybody just come up with at least one strategy on how you would save money for your goal? Anybody have any ideas?
I would say I am a big coffee drinker, and so I sometimes have to have Dunkin' Donuts for coffee. So maybe instead of doing coffee 3 times a week, I cut it down to maybe 2 or 1 and start making coffee at home.
Awesome. That's a good idea.
Resist temptations.
Right.
The ultimate one.
Right. So perhaps cut out unnecessary spending. I don't know if I'm even spelling these things right, but right. So all of those things
You're not.
So Jared said, somebody said cut out Netflix, somebody said cook at home more. So all of those kind of boil down to unnecessary spending as well. Anybody else, Ron?
Here in Lawrence, they have a recycling plant, and they take aluminum, they take like scrap metal or plastics. So, you know, if you recycled, that could save, if you drink a lot of pop or you know, something in aluminum, that's one way.
That's a good idea. So find ways that you can earn extra money. D?
Be frugal. I'm not sure if that's how you say it, but cheap. Think cheap.
Good idea. There's some things coming across the chat. Side jobs. Find a job that you can work enough hours to meet the weekly need, part-time or whatever your goals are. Those are some great strategies. I'm going to call my bank and see about having some of my paycheck deposited directly into a savings account. Or I know my mom used to do this Christmas club. They probably don't do that anymore, but you can have a certain amount deducted and put into like a vacation fund or like a Christmas fund if you're saving for particular things. So bank can be a good resource if you have your paycheck direct deposited, or if you have your Pell direct deposited, you can call your bank and say, hey, can you split up my Pell and put some of it into a savings account. Consolidate loans to reduce the bank charge is a good idea. And also, I think a lot of these things that we are coming up with too speak to budgeting. Perhaps maybe we'll create a budget plan that will keep us on track to reach these goals.
Prepare your meals at home instead of eating out.
That's a big one for me because I like to eat out. Of course, in the pandemic, it hasn't been so much, but when it's not in the pandemic, that's my weekend thing, right? And so I could save a lot of money that way too. So those are really, really great ideas. So did anybody find it helpful that once you get the total amount of what your goal is, to break it down from, so because when you see $1,200, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to get $1,200 in 9 months. But once you kind of break that down on the weekly and the monthly and the weekly and even the daily, so what's that come out to? $5 a day. So that might help you become a little more motivated to save in that way too, if reducing it down. And so that might help too. Jared says, cut down on unpaid labor. That's a really good one because I feel like that a lot of times we do work and don't charge people for it. Like perhaps maybe you're taking photos and or writing or helping tutor other students or things like that. And so those are some things to consider too that might help you reach your goal. So yes, I found it very helpful. And plus you can kind of, if you're paid on a weekly basis, it might help to break down the amount according to your paycheck. So those are just some strategies or some things that you can do, this process that you walk yourself through that will help you really get excited and get it motivated to save money for things that are coming up. And so another thing that you can do to keep yourself accountable for saving is prepare an outline that includes these things. You want to address yourself. You want to explain why you're writing the letter, describe your savings goals and details and why you want to reach the goal, identify any concerns you have about meeting your goal, outline specific steps that you can take to address your concerns, and provide some words of encouragement. So what you're doing is creating an outline, just like you would if you're getting ready to write a paper. So number one, I'm going to say, Dear Lori, because I'm going to address myself. 2, explain why you're writing this letter. I want to reach my savings goals. And then you just kind of just keep going and address each one of these items that they have on the list. And so then when you're done, you can go down here and click on this Future Me, and it will bring up a website that will allow you to compose a letter with all of those elements in the outline to yourself. And so what you do is just write yourself a letter that explains and reminds you of why you're saving this money and why it's important to you, that includes all of the elements in the outline. And then what you can do is choose a date that you want this letter emailed to you. So maybe in a month, you send yourself a reminder basically of why it's important for you to save this money. And then you stay motivated and keep yourself accountable. And you can do this numerous times. You could copy and paste from the outline if you want to do a rough draft in the outline section and set it up to be sent to you multiple times, you know, or even just a little note to yourself that says, hey, are you still saving this $5 a week or $15 a month? And so that might be really, really helpful for everyone. And that's pretty much it. So hopefully you can use this spreadsheet to kind of strategize on how you can set goals for yourself. So we talked a little bit about budgeting and how important that also is in keeping yourself on task. And this is an article that I will also put in the chat about how you can use this 50-20-30 rule when budgeting. And so basically what it is that it helps you build a budget by using these 3 spending categories. So 50% of your income should be going to living expenses and essentials, which is rent, utilities, groceries, transportation, things like that. And 20% of your income should go to your financial goals, meaning your savings, investment, debt reduction payments, if you have any debt such as credit cards. And then 30% of your income should be used for flexible spending, which is everything you buy that you want but don't necessarily need. And so it also tells you, goes into detail about how you can start a 50-20-30 budget. And so I'll just post that article up in the chat room and you can just look at that along with the other elements. And so also, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of the term that you should pay yourself first, but we are going to watch this wonderful, cute little video about what it means to pay yourself first.
Dang. How am I ever going to save enough for a sweet vacation? Well, at least it's payday tomorrow. I wish I had lots of money in my savings account.
Hey, thanks for the change. But wishing won't help you build your savings.
I try to save, but I always wind up short on cash before I get paid again. So, what's the point?
The point is, you gotta pay yourself first.
Okay, I pay myself $10 million.
Ha! Not likely. Let me, well, let me explain. When most people get paid, they pay their bills first, then spend money on fun, and then, with what's left over, they contribute to long-term savings goals. Problem is,
You wind up without enough left over.
bingo! If you want to start saving, take your total monthly income and subtract your essential monthly expenses. Then take a good chunk of the remaining cash and put it into your savings the moment you get your paycheck. Every time. Even a small amount each month can build up fast.
Well, sometimes I might forget to do that.
So, automate it. If you set up an automatic transfer into your savings account on payday, then all you have to do is sit back and watch the savings grow.
That makes a lot of sense. Kind of like how I go jogging in the morning, because if I leave it until later on, I usually end up slacking off.
Absolutely. And the best part is, you can use this technique for all your savings goals, like an emergency fund, your retirement nest egg, a down payment for real estate, or that tropical vacation you've dreamed of. You can even set up a separate savings account for each goal. Paying yourself first ensures that you're saving, and it lets you spend your remaining income stress-free.
Sweet. Next paycheck, I'm paying myself first. Sounds way better than wishing for more savings, unless you're one of those magical talking frogs.
Just the regular talking type, I'm afraid.
Gross. So, can I get my change back?
Nope, that's going towards my savings goals now.
Yay, how cute is that? So what do you guys think about that? I mean, do you find that helpful, or do you think that you might be able to follow through with that when you get some money, you would pay yourself first or put it into a savings account before you start paying your other bills?
I kind of already do something like that. Usually the first time I get my paycheck, I'll immediately set money aside to pay for my bills. I used to have a savings account, but I don't know what happened with my bank account, but for some reason it got closed. But when I did, I would, every time I got a paycheck, I would put money in there. About maybe not a lot, but definitely just enough where I would still have money left over for myself. So I think if I did that now, it would definitely work out, especially with when I know my due dates and I know if I have the time or the funds to do something. I think I would be able to follow through with.
So have you guys seen the thing that was going around social media with the envelopes? So like, I think that you put like for 100 days, you put like $1 in an envelope and then you increase it every day by $1. And at the end of the 100 days, you have like $5,000. That seemed like a good idea for me, but you kind of might have to put it in a safe, because like you would always tend to want to go back and get the money. Oh, well, yeah, that's right. I have that money that I put in the envelope. So a lot of it probably has to do with self-discipline and stuff too. But it's a really good concept as far as, trying to save money to pay yourself first, because you're worth it, right? So this is an article that I will also put in the chat about some apps that are available to you that will help you save. I'm not going to go through and talk about all of them. I'll let you read about them for yourself, but I just want you to know that there are apps out there available to you. I have a friend that uses this Acorns, or it might be another app, but when you pay for items at the grocery store, let's say, or at McDonald's, it will round it up to the next highest dollar. And then the difference between the actual cost of the bill and the what they rounded it up to is set aside an account. And so I had a friend that did that for a year and saved up enough money to go on a cruise. So I think it really adds up. And sometimes I think that your bank, if you have a debit card, might have a similar program that you could maybe call and inquire about that too. And so here's some other apps that they talk about how it works and the perks and the downsides, but I'll just put those articles in the chat so you can look at them a little more thoroughly later. So this is just a really short video on compound interest that we will look at before we wrap things up, or Yosh might have some things that she wanted to add too about compound interest. And so this is how we talked about this a little bit earlier, and how you can use interest to almost double your money over a particular period of time.
Compound interest is the interest an investor earns on his original investment, plus all the interest earned on the interest that has accumulated over time. It is easier to think of compound interest as interest on interest. To understand compound interest, let's first look at simple interest, the interest earned on the original principal only. Suppose you deposit $10,000 into a high-interest savings account at a 5% simple interest rate for 3 years. The interest you earn each year is 5% times 10,000, which equals $500, for a total of $1,500 of interest at the end of year 3. $500 plus 500 plus 500. Now instead, suppose that you deposit the same $10,000 at 5% interest compounded annually. In year 1, the interest you earn is the same, $500. But in year 2, the interest you earn is 5% times 10,500, the original amount plus the interest you earned in year 1. So the second year's interest is $525. In year 3, you earn 5% interest on $11,025, $10,000 plus 500, year 1 interest, plus 525, year 2 interest, for an interest payment of $551.25. In total, you earn $1,576.25 in interest over 3 years with compounding interest versus $1,500 with simple interest, a difference of $76.25. The effect of compounding becomes especially powerful over longer time periods as the amount of earned interest becomes larger and larger.
Pretty cool, huh? So Yosh is going to talk a little bit more about that. And while she is speaking to you about that, I will put some of those documents into the chat.
Okay, so I have read a book, and it is really good. It talks about the compound effect. So it does take a lot of the different things that Lori had talked about when it comes to savings, when it comes to trying to invest your money and trying to look at these different habits in which is going to be, is going to help you to get to your goal. So let me go ahead and pull up my PowerPoint here really quick. It's a really good read. It has exercises in the book as well, and so it's not just based on. Can everybody see that? Yeah. Okay. So it's not just based on just money. It can be relationships. It could be your time, but it definitely plays in when it comes to your money. So the compound effect is a strategy of reaping huge rewards for small, seemingly insignificant actions that you can improve sometimes, or you can't improve until you are able to measure it. So this is something that, again, it's going to be small changes, and the more that you do it, it's going to compound into bigger things over time. And so we'll just kind of look at that real quick. So small choices, consistency, and time equals significant results. Success is doing half a dozen things really well, repeated for 5,000 times. So again, if you want to be, example would be if you want to save that money, you're saving $5 a day, that's going to continue to add up. And then that could be, I'm not going to drink my coffee. So that's not only going to be me saving my money, but it's also going to help cut down on calories. It's also going to cut down on me going out and spending money. So that's a big deal for me. That would be gas, my time to go get that coffee. So progress, so small changes add up. So everything that Lori talked about when it comes to finance, for us to be able to see that, we have to be able to track that. And so that workshop was really cool. There's a couple of things that I'm excited that's going to be on there for my different little goals that I'm going to be doing. And so I'm excited to really get that going. So we have to be able to create new habits, and the choices that we make are going to be centered around how we're going to be able to make that. So being accountable to making an effort to save or make these changes is going to be important when it comes to the compound effect. You don't need to have more knowledge. Again, like Lori said, you just need a new action plan. And a lot of times it's that big number or that big goal that freaks us out. And so having the ability to see it in small steps is going to be helpful for us overall to get to that end goal. So being aware, so tracking, we want to make sure that we have that awareness, and we want to try to write everything down. So for the first week, or for the week actually, you want to be able to track your different habits when it comes to your goals. Again, so that could be your finances, tracking those, tracking how you spend your money, where you go to spend that money. Again, that time is going to add to that money. You going and doing these things is going to add. So again, try to look at how you're able to get to that goal. Okay. So steps is to start, like Lori was saying, if you did the $1 envelope, putting that in there is going to add. So kind of just going over that. So you can start by saving 1% of your money each month. So looking at your monthly budget, what is 1% of that? You could be saving that and putting that into your account. As soon as you get paid, you want to put that into that saving account. So that way you don't have to worry about it. Another thing that's very helpful is if you're making any type of payments. So like if you have a truck, well, I have a truck. So if you have a truck and you have, the minimum payment, you don't want to just make the minimum payment. If you have the ability to pay a little bit extra, that helps with that interest, right? Because you're getting charged, if you have a loan, you're going to get charged for that amount that each year. So if you are able to pay more and more, that's going to cut down on that interest rate. And then overall, for your time, you're going to be able to get that truck paid off earlier by just simply adding a little bit more to that payment. And that works for your credit cards, that works for again, putting that money in your savings. So I try to be aware of that. So again, if your payments are $250 and you can do $300, it may not seem like a lot right now, but over time, it's going to make a big difference when it comes to getting that paid off. Your interest rates isn't going to be as high, and you're going to get that paid off, and you're going to feel good, and then you have the ability to get your credit rate up because you're making those payments on time, and you're also paying a little bit more than just the minimum payments. So banks will also look at that. If you're trying to apply or get a credit card, they're going to see how your payments are and what you pay towards those different things. For me, I get, when I have goals, and sometimes you have those days where you're like, oh, I just want to spend money and stuff like that. So my triggers are going to, stores. And so that's a habit for me. And so being able to identify how we're not reaching those goals. So for me, it would be, I like to go shopping, and I always buy a little bit more. So knowing that is a habit for me, and how can I change that? Maybe I go shopping once a month as opposed to twice a week or something like that. So, again, small little things are going to help when it comes to that compound effect. You have to be patient and understand that this is going to take you a while, but also note that, building these bad habits took time. over years. So you're going to have to kind of retrain yourself. And again, that by tracking your week and looking at the triggers, you're going to be able to see what little changes are going to be able to do. So if we look at it, and here's the example, the magic penny. So if we're going to look at it and see how this really works over time, the example is this: say you eat a small chocolate bar every morning for around 3 years. If the chocolate bar is 125 calories and you do nothing extra to your diet or exercise program, you will have gained an extra 39 pounds in those 3 years. And so again, that is that compound effect. And so these little things that we're able to change or add on is going to definitely go positive or negative. So this would be the breakdown of how that would look like, and understanding these small little things that you're doing, whether it's your finances, your health, business, professional development, or your personal development and your relationships, things over time can start to add up. So I kind of wanted just to briefly talk about it. There's more information about that book. I definitely recommend it. It helps not only with your finances, but again, your overall life and how you're able to create possibilities by being disciplined, being able to track and doing the small things that you can, and being able to look at those numbers like Lori had that, how you're able to save $5 a day. It doesn't really seem that much, but over time you're going to be able to make that goal. So wanted to share this. Hopefully this is very helpful. It does take a little bit of time, discipline and commitment, but that's just with anything in life, you're going to have to make those little changes. And so here is the book. And so if you think about it, just like all of the material that we went over today, that little carrot is going to be small, but over a year, if you keep growing and keep adding to it, it's going to be something grand. So kind of just little brief stuff, Lori. Hopefully that was helpful.
Awesome. Thanks, Yosh. Mm-hmm. So does anybody have any questions or any comments? What are you guys thinking right now? Nobody likes to talk about money. I feel like that nobody talks to us enough about money. Eilena, do you have anything to say? Because I don't know what you're thinking right now, but I know when I have been in your shoes before as a single parent and as a student, and I'm thinking if I was in your shoes at this moment, I would be thinking there is no way I'm going to be able to come up with enough money to save anything.
I'm just thinking about right now trying to add it up. Okay, I go take $1 out of the bank, put it in my envelope, take $2 out, put it in my envelope. But yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it seems like a good strategy.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, maybe bi-weekly I could figure it out and just do that every week or something. But yeah, that would be nice by the end of the year to have that.
Right.
Or within the 100 days, that's only what, 30, 60, 90, only over 4 months, 4 months. So, it's not really that long.
Right. And I think that especially for those of us folks who are used to being in a space where, you're just living paycheck to paycheck and there's no I mean, if I had a flat tire and I had to take it to a mechanic, anytime that I had to go into the mechanic's office or shop, it was terrifying because I knew that was going to be an extra expense that I didn't have any money for. And so just at the very least to be able to have some savings or have some money set aside for when those emergencies come about. I mean, you kind of think about it in terms of a trade-off, right? So instead of going to the burger stand and spending, I mean, you could easily spend maybe $20 on a burger and fries and a beer at the burger stand. And that's just one shot, right? So, you know, you, instead of doing that and taking that money and just kind of setting it aside, and if you do that maybe every 2 weeks, that's $40 a month. And then in a couple of months you have $80. And so, you know, maybe within three to 6 months, you at least have something to fall back on in case your washer breaks down or if your car breaks down. Or and you know, one thing that isn't mentioned that I think is really important to mention that we haven't talked about is when I was a single parent and living paycheck to paycheck, one thing that I always made sure that I did was contribute to like United Way, or some kind of local charity in some way. And maybe I didn't do that in monetary ways. There was a lot of times that I did a little bit of community service. And I don't think that enough can be said about those little things that you contribute in that way, because it really does kind of come back to you in a lot of ways. So, like, I don't know how many times, you know, here I think I was making $6.50 an hour as a receptionist one time at one period in my life, and I had 3 kids. One of the people that worked in the office with me let me stack wood for them for extra money so I could spend that money to buy basketball shoes for my kids. And I still would take out at least $1 or $2 a paycheck to contribute to my local United Way or some whatever charity that I could. And it seemed like at the worst possible times of my life, I would get like a check in the mail. Like my insurance would be like, oh, you overpaid, or a bonus or something would come through at work. And I always attributed it to that, to at least giving back to my community or doing community service or stuff like that. So that's also something to consider. I'm sure they don't discuss that hocus pocus stuff in Dave Ramsey, but for Native people, I think that those things are worth a little bit of consideration.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody else have anything that they, any questions or anything that they want to talk about as far as savings or anything of that nature? All right, well, that's all we have for this particular seminar. I put the forms and stuff into the chat if you want to pull them out. Otherwise, I will probably go ahead and also email those on Monday's Trio Weekly reminder message, along with a link to the recording for those folks that missed it. But we really appreciate everybody coming and participating and hope that you took away a few things from our seminar today. Delilah, do you have your hand up because you want to say something? Okay. All right. So thank you so much. We'll see you guys soon. Yeah. Thanks for coming. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Hey,
Bye.
good job. Go save that money.